Hi, this is Shane Gibson's podcast from closingbigger.net. Today, we're going to talk about the exponential mindset that's required before we lay the foundation of AI into our sales organization. I believe that mindset from an AI perspective in sales organizations is just as important as the technology we implement. I've seen a lot of organizations with a linear mindset implementing new technology, but in essence, what they're doing is they're just doing the same old sales process a little faster. So they're doing more of the wrong thing, in my opinion, and they might not even thinking about how they're going to enter their market in a more exponential way where AI can really help to accelerate that. So I want to talk, and this is high level today, this isn't specific tactics on AI implementation and what tools to use and processes to use. But at a high level, I want to give you a bit of a checklist and a little bit of a reality check around, is my organization set with the right exponential mentality that's going to truly benefit from artificial intelligence and give me the competitive advantage? And am I, as a seller, if you're an individual salesperson listening to this, am I, as a seller, do I have the right mindset and outlook and approach to maximize these opportunities? And that kind of goes the same for sales leaders. So I want to talk a little bit about linear versus exponential. This gets a bit repetitive, but I want to walk you through this. So think about this as almost a verbal self-assessment here that we're going to go through. So when I think about linear companies, let's compare linear versus exponential culture or thinking and strategy from an sales organization perspective. So a linear goal is growth by 50%. That's a big growth goal. Next year, we're going to grow by 50% in the major markets we're in. An exponential thinking is not let's grow 50% in this market, let's grow globally by 450% by entering 9 new markets, right? So that concept of a really multiplier effect of strategy. And then linear thinking is how do we improve customer satisfaction, where exponential thinking as a sales organization is how do I build customer communities? How do I create a community, engage it, get them to connect, and add value through that network and multiply our marketing and sales efforts through this community that we've built. Linear thinking says, I'm going to market where the customer is, but exponential thinking knows that we're in a multi-channel universe. Your average business-to-business buyer has access to, and many use, up to 20 different channels to learn, do business, connect, engage buyers, communicate with peers. And so how we really want to market is through omni-channel expansion, not just where the customer is, but also where new opportunities lie in new channels. Of course, the traditional thinking is I'm going to build and then I'm going to manage and follow systems. And exponential thinking says I'm going to automate and scale systems. So it's a different mentality just to build and manage a process through systems, even technology, than how do I actually automate this process and make it scalable. And that is sometimes what will get us here is not going to get us there, because what we've built, we can manage that process, but it's not a scalable one. Then we think about linear thinking is creating industry partnerships. That's traditional partnerships. So if I'm a major tech vendor, I'm thinking about traditional partnerships such as VARs and managed service providers and other types of organizations that cater to the market. Uncommon partnerships is about looking outside of that little bubble we're in our channel, so to speak, and look at opportunities to grow exponentially with organizations that cater to new markets that we can access, or maybe we don't have as many competitors in that space. And so these are some of the things when we think about exponential sales strategy as an organization that come into play. So then we think linear companies again versus exponential. Here's a few more. I'm going to walk through 5 more, and then I'm going to walk into the exponential sales mindset that I believe is required to really benefit from and prepare for the layer of artificial intelligence and amplifying what we do well. So traditionally we think, I'm going to anticipate the market. So I'm going to see where the trend is going, and then I'm going to get ahead of it a little bit. So that's traditional thinking from a sales perspective. On the exponential side, how we create market share, how we really move ahead, is we create the change. So how do I disrupt the market? Through my offerings, through what I communicate, to how my clients engage me. This is how we create that exponential opportunity. Traditionally, we're going to think sales department. as an organization. I'm building a sales division, a VP of sales. I got my CRO above them. I've got my sales managers. I got my sales team. And this department operates maybe in conjunction with sales operations and sales enablement, but it's a sales bubble where exponential organizations realize that every single person in that organization contributes to sales, and their goal is not to build a really good sales department, it's to build a really good company-wide sales culture. That's a multiplier effect. Traditionally, we think, I'm going to train that salesperson. I'm going to train individuals with individual learning plans. Exponential organizations realize that we need to learn together. So I look at a tool like Gong or Fathom, which is an AI-based note taker that listens to calls and assesses how people are doing on calls and the data they're gathering. And you can use this, for instance, to glean best practices and then share that data across your entire team. If a salesperson has identified a new way to send an outbound email that seems to get a higher open rate and a better response rate, you share that across the team. If somebody else perfects or iterates or disrupts the way we run a discovery call and then develops better results as a result, then that is shared across the team. So the goal is, how do we learn together and get better together and actually make the process of training a daily culture and part of what we do versus an event? Linear companies think, how do I evolve my organization? And again, exponential is, how do I reinvent? How do I disrupt myself as a sales organization? How do I take what I hold as true and habit, and how do I break that so I can sell better and differently? Hierarchical decision making has always been traditionally what linear organizations do. They have a hard time right now. I look at some of the sales organizations I work with who are very hierarchical and traditional, and one of the things getting in the way has gotten in the way of them being great at social selling and leveraging tools like LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and you name it, is that hierarchical command and control decision making. And it is having an even greater impact on their ability to stay ahead of the competition and reinvent themselves with artificial intelligence. They want to control. Exponential organizations have distributed decision-making principles. So they train their people, they hire the right people, they trust them, and then they push the tools to the front line for those individuals to actually drive better results. Some of those tools, of course, include artificial intelligence-based tools. So when I think about content creation that the sales team is using, traditionally it's developed by the marketing team, approved by somebody else, and then pushed out in little pieces that all look the same to the sales team, where organizations that have distributed decision-making principles are actually equipping their salespeople with artificial intelligence-based tools so they can create reels and short videos and write posts on LinkedIn and iterate on their outbound email cadences and set them themselves. And so they've actually trained them on how to use the tech stack and allowed them to be creative with it. And that allows them to really make decisions and give them the right principles to succeed versus trying to control them from the top. Controlling from the top means there's a bottleneck and you're going to limit growth, learning, and exponential creativity within your sales organization. So then exponential selling. Let's talk about individual sellers or sales team members. So traditionally we think, how do I create a better buying experience? But I want to think about, as an exponential seller, how do I create a different buying experience? How do I create a different process that I engage? Even my sales funnel and the outreach tools I'm using, how do I look different? And how does the customer experience me differently than any of my competitors? Traditionally, we think, I'm not getting the sales results I want, so I must need to make more calls. But exponential sellers think, how do I add value, more value with each contact, so I can actually get better results with fewer touches? Selling one contact is traditionally when we want to find the decision maker, that person going to write the check. Exponential sellers sell the whole network. They know all the key buying influencers. They've got solid relationships with them, but they're also getting data from 6 different points. So they got 6 times the data a traditional salesperson has, which means, in my opinion, they can have a 6 times better solution for their client, which drives better results, which builds more trust, which builds more wallet share. Reactive selling is what has happened traditionally. Proactive selling is about us leading, developing strategies, and using technology to drive those processes. Better closing. Sales leaders traditionally have always reached out to me to say, Shane, I want you to help my team close better. But the reality is, in most cases, in order to really maximize the opportunity with clients, shorten sales cycle, sell the right solutions, deepen the relationships, we actually have to get better at opening the conversation. We have to get better at discovery meetings and discovery calls. So that's another area of focus that exponential sellers focus more on: understanding the client, building business acumen, asking the right questions more and often than how do I close that next step? What's this kitschy approach or this canned tactic I'm going to use to close the next step? Instead, how do I have more powerful conversations? Follow up was traditionally what we thought about. So I'm going to send you a proposal and I'm going to keep following up until you tell me to go away or the deal closes. Exponential selling realizes that time is the most valuable asset we have. So we're always closing the next step. So we're not chasing people and clients. And of course, artificial intelligence allows you to do that in many seamless ways and even adds value through follow-up that's very contextual and systemized, yet personalized. Traditionally, we thought prospecting goals like daily activities, and now we're thinking personally prospecting 24/7, so being aware of what's happening around me, but also leveraging tools like Dripify and Copilot and LinkedIn and other great tools like Bombara, Zoom Info, so that you're actually networking and identifying new opportunities continually and having them fed you through your CRM. So when you wake up in the morning, you know who the top 20 or 30 people in the marketplace you need to reach out to or within your client base, because you're letting AI drive that for you. And your awareness, again, is always there personally. So even when you're out in the community from an analog perspective, you're always on from an opportunity seeking perspective. So I got a few more things around exponential selling, and then I'm going to kind of wrap this up a little bit on some thoughts for you as far as next steps. So traditionally we think follow up more. Today, I would say we want to think about following up with more value. So how do I add more value through context, through business critical insights, through great conversations? Traditionally, it's enter data. Today, it's gather and leverage data. So this is really what an exponential thinker is about. And we need to leverage tech, AI, automation to do this better. Fulfill your role. That's the goal. That's the goal, is I'm going to do my job. Here's my job description. This is the number of calls I got to make. That's the traditional thinking from a sales perspective. But those that exponentially grow and succeed understand that collaborating and giving, not just fulfilling the role and meeting requirements of clients and my employer, are actually what's going to maximize my career and my opportunities. Deals. It was all about the deal. How do I close a deal? Exponential sellers is how do I build a lifetime customer? They're willing to slow down, take their time, sell the right solution, grow the client in the right way that's truly going to benefit them, be on brand for their organization, maximize the opportunity, and lock them in for life. Focus on sales success. That's the big one as well. So from that perspective, it's all about focusing on sales success traditionally. So you sacrifice, you work the hours, you book off time away from the family. But today we realize to be a true exponential seller who can sustain success, not over a year or two, but decades, is we need to focus on making ourselves better in all areas. Our health, physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health, our balance with our family. These things actually feed the engine that allows us to go out there and drive results over the long term, because it is definitely a marathon. It is not a sprint. I know we're measured quarterly, but the reality is our success in our sales career, our success in our organization is going to be measured in years and decades. And of course, in the past, we thought about making a sale, and today we're thinking about how do I partner with somebody to create the ideal solution. So this is the mindset that I believe lays a foundation that allows us to already be in that exponential mindset and really think about shifting our process to maximize value. And then when we start to add artificial intelligence in, it's not just about automating the mundane, it's actually about helping you augment your sales process with more value for the end user, which is your customer. And that's what it's really about. So kind of summarizing here, here's a few characteristics of the ideal or mindsets of the ideal exponential seller who's ready to leverage AI, in my opinion. Number one, exponential sellers focus on their A accounts and prospects. So we all know the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of the market. But a great exponential seller builds their whole sales process around that and implements all their technology to support their highest ROI client base. Now, exponential sellers also sell the whole network. So it's not just about finding that decision maker, but I mentioned that earlier. They actually are going to find that network of 6 to 8 buying influencers within major companies they're selling to, so that they can maximize their security. If you have a relationship with 6 people, it's better than a relationship with 1, but you also maximize the context. And in many cases, you allow yourself to help them problem solve their way into making the right buying solution for their organization. And you can't do that through the lens of one person. So great exponential sellers know that more people within an organization buying in means better data, better solutions, and quicker decision making if we're set up with it. And once we understand that, then it's time to implement tech tools and AI to help us monitor them, add value, find context, customize communications for each of them so we can rapidly do it. But it still goes down to the very human element of building these networks, managing the politics, and giving them what they need when they need it. Then, of course, exponential sellers also ask more questions and go deeper and broader. So I talked about that earlier, is we're in such a rush to move to the close that we only close a small deal or the wrong deal, or we get frustrated when the negotiations gets difficult. And the reality is we missed the opening. And so it's about having a really good discovery process where we dig deeper, but we also think beyond just our solution to how can I add value to this person's life and their entire organization, not just where my product adds value in this one area. Then, of course, exponential sellers have overwhelmingly large networks and more potential than they could possibly tap into. So your average seller is desperate in most cases. They're desperate to close the deal. They're anxious about this deal closing, and one of the reasons why is their pipeline is somewhat empty. They got just enough, if it all comes together, and a little bit of a miracle on top, that they're going to hit their numbers. Exponential sellers actually are continually networking, like we talked about before, but also leveraging AI-based tools to network even in their sleep to build better lists, to automate outreach to some degree, and by doing that, they've got a much larger network, more opportunities to choose from, and in fact, their problem is not enough deals, but not enough time to move these ideal candidates through their sales funnel. So when we think about this, what does this allow us to do? What allows us to 3 to 10x our potential, I believe, as a salesperson or a sales organization. So we talked earlier about the simple act of just improving, 5 key steps in our sales process by 10% each, and that's the same as increasing our outbound activities by 50%. But then if we layer into that, 2xing our selling time. And how do we do that? Well, through artificial intelligence, we start to automate and augment our capacity so that we're spending less time doing the mundane and actually giving us more time to sell face-to-face to clients and do the things that we're really hired to do. By focusing on our A accounts, those 20%ers that give us 80% of our business, and be willing to build a sales process around this, often we can at least double our average client size within our funnel. Then if I master discovery conversations, so I build more credibility in the relationship, I find better business cases and develop more urgency, and I really am able to tailor and develop more holistic, broader solutions for my clients, I can easily 2x my average deal size. And then if I implement this process of selling to multiple players within an organization as a discipline, I can 6x my insights. And then if I'm turning on the tap where I'm open all the time to network and connect with people, but I'm also leveraging multiple types of AI-based technology to find and develop more leads and opportunities for conversations, I think I can 3x my leads as well on the top end of the funnel. And what this leads to, if we start to add all these numbers up, is by changing my mindset, but also enabling it with technology, I can then all of a sudden 10x my sales results as a sales organization or a salesperson in a short period of time. So my challenge is to you, and I said this before many years ago about social media-based tools, is don't fall in love with the tools, fall in love with your customers. And I think this is a really important piece, is that AI is just another tool. Just like LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram were to help us reach more people, AI is going to help us do what we do better and faster and augment our intelligence. But it's going to really be about amplifying who we are and our mindset and the value we're trying to deliver to our customer by being an exponential thinker. So this is Shane Gibson's podcast from closingbigger.net.